Hi, everyone. My name is Tony Jaroszewski. I'm the director for pre-sales for network and security at Ahead. And today we're going to talk about a confusing but interesting subject on zero trust. So what we want to talk about today is we're going to talk about zero trust, but it's very confusing. There's a lot of different definitions that are out there. There's a lot of manufacturers, consultants, different partners, and everyone has their own definitions. So really what we want to do is take 5 or 10 minutes today to kind of give some clarity and hopefully help customers with their zero trust journey. So we at Ahead, we've developed our own approach to cyber resilience, and that's kind of the basis of not only looking at industry principles, but how we start to format Ahead's reference architecture for zero trust. We've broken it down into these various areas and also into various different pillars as well. And this is going to help customers not only consume, but roadmap and figure out what's most important to enable this zero trust journey for them. So the first thing that we do start with is Ahead's approach to cyber resilience. We look at it in 3 different fashions that need to happen. Number 1, I need to be able to assess and develop a strategy. So understanding what I have, where I'm trying to go, what are some of the gaps, and really having that assessment to understand where are we trying to go, what do I have. That's one key pillar that we look at for that approach to cyber resilience. The second piece is designing a mitigation architecture. This is going to be, how do I protect those assets? How do I start to enable a zero trust architecture inside of this customer? And the third piece is, how do I plan to recover? At the end of the day, no matter how well our security postures are, there is always going to be that chance, and most likely customers are going to get hit. So how do I have the ability to recover so that I can get the business back up and running as fast as possible is going to be, a key component to this approach. So a lot of things around cyber recovery land into this bucket. But we also look at zero trust as, how do I protect so that when something does happen, I don't have this huge event where it takes me weeks or months to recover a business. And we want to mitigate it so that's a very small blast radius. So that's the approach to cyber resilience. When we start looking at what is Ahead's reference architecture, we have this basic slide that we go through that probably garners the most interest and attention with customers. And this is how we've really broken down zero trust. We look at zero trust as 3 different areas that we break it down into. And when we look at this slide, we look at, how do I enable customers to get to the point where they can say, I'm going to put my apps anywhere, my users are going to be anywhere, and how do I have a network and a security construct that's able to support this so that I have a common security construct that I'm always, checking against. So what we found is, again, manufacturers and they're going to go out there and they really confuse this because they say, well, we can do zero trust. And I found that zero trust breaks down into 3 different areas at first. So when we look at this slide, there's a lot going on in this. It's a very, busy slide, but let me walk through this and it'll help give you some clarity on how we define these 3 areas. So the first area, we always start at 1 o'clock up in the right-hand corner, and we start looking at zero trust data center. And this is going to be specific to, how do I start to limit lateral movement, and how do I start to get into areas of segmentation, whether it's macro or micro segmentation. But basically, how do I limit that east-west lateral movement traffic? Because we know in the old ways of designing security architecture, it was more typically a castle and moat or perimeter-based model. But I never really checked on the traffic that was inside the data center itself. So when I start looking at that zero trust of data center, this is, again, how do I mitigate this? Some of the solutions that we look at here are going to go down the microseg path, maybe agent-based solutions. But again, this is going to be very specific to that data center area and starting to tackle issues where customers may have flat networks or may have to segment based off of compliance standards, whether it's PCI, HIPAA, SOX, etc. This allows us to start to do the segmentation of those workloads. The second piece, as we go down towards 6 o'clock here, we start looking at zero trust workplace. This is going to be a completely separate paradigm. This is when I start to look at the workplace itself. This may deal with things like IT/OT separation, utilities, manufacturing, healthcare. How do I onboard devices so that those devices get the amount of access that they need to do their job and nothing more? So really kind of focused on a least privilege model. But again, this is going to be very specific to the workplace, campus, manufacturing, etc. So the tools, the techniques, the products that are going to help solve problems in this area are completely different than the data center area that we talked about in that first area. So again, these are different areas, and we want to understand what is more important to that customer. The third area that we look at if we start, and continue moving clockwise is going to be zero trust users. So how do I allow a paradigm that says my users can be anywhere, but how do I give them the security constructs that say they're allowed to go an application to get their job done? So again, going back to that least privilege model, but based off of identity. Everything that we look at in a zero trust reference architecture has the basis of identity. That is one of the key pillar foundations that we look at. So how do I allow, whether it's users at home, users at the branch, third-party contractors, how do I allow them the proper access to get to the workload wherever it may be? It may be a SaaS application, it may be an internet-based application, it may be something in your private applications that are in your data center. And again, for me, the data center doesn't matter. It could be on-prem or it could be cloud-based. But again, how do I give those users, whether they get a red arrow or a green arrow to say, yes, you can go there, or no, you can't, based off of your identity, what's your device, and what do you need to do your job? So again, those three areas are going to be more that data center, zero trust workplace, and zero trust users. Each one of those is completely different products, OEMs, manufacturers, ways to go about it, and what's most important. So the key component that Ahead does is we look at, through the customer's lens, number one, where are your gaps? And also, what is most important for you? When we start talking about our utilities, manufacturing customers, they're going to really focus on the zero trust workplace. Maybe some of the financial customers or people that have more strict compliance standards, they may be more focused on zero trust data center. And then obviously COVID's helped kick everybody with the zero trust users, because our workforce now is very scattered, typically not centralized on a branch or, a headquarters location. They're working from everywhere. So again, how do I start to move away from things like VPN to give those users the access that they need to do their job, but nothing more? So again, this is hopefully giving a little bit of a clarity, a few minutes to understand how Ahead's going to market with zero trust, how we've built a zero trust reference architecture that addresses multiple different areas. And then we actually will dive down into deeper pillars, starting to look at what products fit, how do we design the solutions, on how do we roadmap this as next steps. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of how Ahead looks at zero trust, and some of the reference architectures and techniques that we do to help customers in their zero trust journey. So I want to thank you for taking time on this, and hope everyone has a good day.